Let's end 2023 with an actual road trip, shall we? How's going from Seattle to Miami sound? In the Crew 1, this is nearly 100 miles. And to make things just a bit harder, I'm not allowed to crash my vehicle at all. This is an actual in-game challenge, so I'm using a motorbike just to make it a little easier to dart through traffic and whatnot. Anyway, while I have you for the next 30 to 40 minutes, why don't we have a chat? Like an honest one. Because if you ask me, 2023 was a terrible year. Perhaps more terrible for me than 2020 and 2021 combined. 2022 was bad for me also, though that year also had a lot of amazing moments I'll cherish forever, so I can't exactly call that a total wash. But 2023, frankly, it is a miracle that I am still alive. It's hard to know where to begin with a talk like this. I'd rather not start at the very beginning, so instead, let's start at the beginning of this channel. The idea to start a channel came to me in late February or March. I'd begun watching VTubers more, I was enjoying the idea of becoming anime and just escaping from things going on in my real life. AI was also starting to take off around then, and I began using Bard AI to brainstorm channel ideas. I originally settled around the idea of doing road trip talks primarily, but I realized most people would find that boring if I didn't supplement it with something else. That's when I decided I wanted to do videos about police pursuits. Well, not actual police pursuits, mind you. We shouldn't be glorifying those at all, so I instead opted to do police pursuits in games, like Need for Speed. From there, I wanted to do videos of other racing games too, like Burnout, Split Second, and of course, The Crew as well. So in March, I began recording footage and threw it into Microsoft Clipchamp because it was free as well as simplistic enough for me to understand. When I started, I didn't even have an avatar yet. I was honestly rather afraid of putting too much of myself into the videos. I was afraid that people would reject me, and rightly so, I should add. My first videos went up from April 15th onward. Initially, people around me told me my videos lacked personality. That really stuck with me, to be honest. But it wasn't until April 30th, the night of my heart attack, that things started to change. I was in and out of the hospital from the 30th to about May 3rd, and when I finally got home, I said screw it, and I used AI to create my first avatar. I then started to rework some of my videos around it. It was nerve-wracking, I'm not gonna lie. I was putting more and more videos out there, but it quickly occurred to me that racing games just do not do well on YouTube. Especially when they're older games, or just remasters of older games. Nobody is searching for Need for Speed Hot Pursuit content in 2023. Nobody is searching for Burnout content in 2023. That led me to experiment more with YouTube Shorts. I decided I would try gambling on my content reaching more generalized audiences, people who don't necessarily play racing games but might find them fun to watch. This led to the creation of minute matches, 60 seconds of highlights from races, police pursuits, what have you. And they did well enough. The minute matches of Hot Pursuit got more views overall and ultimately more watch time than all of the mainline Hot Pursuit episodes ever did. Episodes of Need for Speed Rivals did a little better by comparison, but Rivals minute matches were just as comparable in numbers. That said, where things really started to take off for me was just making stupid content from the games I played. For some reason, the dumber the short, the more views it got. But when the dumber shorts got more views, that also attracted a lot more hate comments, transphobia, and even some threats here and there. It's something that you come to expect when you're someone like me, but it's also something you never really get used to. As summer turned to fall, I gave a lot more thought to things like theming and branding. This meant making more avatars for myself, and my new overlays were something of a personalized take on the Android Auto user interface. Racing was still very much a focal point of my channel, but I was starting to branch out to game series from other genres. Savage Planet, Fallout, N-War, to name a few. Fall was around the time that I migrated from Clipchamp to Adobe Premiere Elements. I told myself I was going to be serious about content creation. Making this jump into a more advanced editing program meant learning a lot of things from scratch. I had to make my own templates, understand keyframes, finally fix the audio peaking issues I was having in videos made with Clipchamp, You'll probably notice I haven't had any major audio glitches since moving to Premiere Elements, but I also needed to step up my production in other ways. Many of my videos had splash screens where it would be a still image, and I decided I would try to find a more creative way to create animated ones. You'll definitely see more of that in the year to follow. The other thing is, I made a thumbnail template, which I don't necessarily dislike, and it will continue to get me by for a while. If there is one thing which worked against me this entire time, it's that even the games from other genres are old, and people don't really do YouTube searches for them either. If you search End War on YouTube, you get videos about ending war IRL and not about the game. I couldn't even find anyone else making videos on the game these days, so yeah. Sometimes I do wonder if maybe I was just too late to the medium. Like, if I had done these videos when the games were new, I'd certainly have more eyes on me. Going into 2024, I do plan to do a lot of videos on Motorfest, so I can only hope that will lead to an increase in traffic. Speaking of 2024, I've already been hard at work prepping videos for the coming months. I can tell you that I will be doing the Crew 1 story mode, I will be doing Need for Speed Payback, and like I just said, Motorfest will be a staple of the channel starting in February. But even if I know they won't be popular, I will still continue to do very old games. It was brought to my attention that Need for Speed Most Wanted, the 2012 one, not the actual good one, is still on EA Play, so that might be good for a laugh for a few weeks or so. And then there are games which, again, aren't racing games. I'd like to do Hitman, I'd like to do Far Cry Primal, I'd like to do Rune Factory 4. You have seen some City Skylines content, but those are sadly few and far between given the amount of time that they take. And there's other games as well, it just depends on how much time I can dedicate to them. One thing I do need to reconcile is that during the year 2023, I overscheduled and overworked myself. I went from doing a handful of videos per week to doing about 10 a week. It would be like 3 main series videos and 6 to 8 shorts a week. This was a really dumb idea for someone who was chronically ill and still recovering from a heart attack. In 2024, I will definitely dial things back. I plan to do no more than 5 videos a week total. That's one every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. Tuesdays will likely just be personal vlogs, Wednesday and Thursday will be mainline episodes of games, Saturday and Sunday will be shorts or bonus content. I feel like that strikes a balance for me. Also, in 2024, if I can get a handle on my health, I'm gonna need to find work again, and if I can't get a handle on my health, I'll have to apply for disability, which is honestly one of the more stressful things to do. But yeah, health was a major point of contention for all of my 2023, and it's a major contributor as to why this year sucked so hard for me. As of this video, I still have no idea what is causing the symptoms I've been experiencing. My doctors have pretty much ruled out a million different things, but even then we can't seem to pinpoint the right diagnosis. It's incredibly demoralizing. All I've really learned in the past year is I should stay the hell away from gluten for the rest of my life. That isn't a lot of info to go on, and sometimes my symptoms will be caused by things completely unrelated to gluten. Frick, I don't know anymore. But being sick severely restricted my ability to do things. I couldn't travel as much as I had in years past. I had to skip out on family gatherings. I also put some of my other personal projects on hold, but that's going to change. I'll try to get the courage to push those projects forward. I actually convinced myself to write to the governor of California. That's something I should have done, like, almost 2 years ago. I've always believed people should advocate for the stances they believe in, and it's about time I actually take my own advice. Even if nothing comes of it, I'll at least be able to say I tried, that I put forth the effort. And that's all that really matters in this life, isn't it? So I'll readily be the first to admit that the things I have tried to do in my life have not really panned out. I've failed in a lot of different ways. I've made many mistakes which have cost me jobs in the past. I've tried starting businesses, both my own and in conjunction with other people, only for the demand to just not be there. I've gone back to school many times to learn new skills, but applying those skills in a way that will lead to my own successes has been a considerable challenge for me. I often take full responsibility for the mistakes I make, but then there's that part of me that also blames myself for the things others do, for their impressions of me, and even for their mistreatments of me. You know, I'm aware, quite fully in fact, that many of my ideas have been pretty solid, and the biggest hurdle was, well, I was the one to put those ideas out there. Like, if anyone else were to do the things I have done or am doing, they'd see more success simply because, well, they're not me. At the end of the day, well, I am me. And for having the will to take risks and put myself out there, I know I need to give myself more credit. I need to be able to tell myself that trying still has value, that people who try still deserve love and care, even if they fail, even if failure is a constant for them. When I look back on 2023, and 2022 for that matter, I came up with so many wild and crazy ideas that could definitely help the world. Some of those ideas are already being explored by others in other parts of the world, and there is a growing potential for those ideas to be very successful, to lift people up out of situations and give them a life that may not be lavish, but at the very least would be comfortable. Am I saddened that some people have vilified me for pushing those same ideas? Like with the seaweed farming in the desert idea. I mean, yeah, that hurt a lot. Rejection hurts. But I think the bottom line is that by pushing that idea in my own way, or pushing the tiny home designs I worked on in college, or pushing any number of other wacky ideas that I've had, that I am planting the seed for others to make happen. So I am doing my part, even if I might not be formally recognized by others for doing it. And I guess, for me, as I go into 2024, I have to ask myself, even if I might not get formally recognized for the things that I do, things of that nature, what can I say I deserve above all else? What have I earned in this life? And that's the thing. I was even afraid to ask for help in 2023 because I felt like I hadn't earned that right. I put off applying for public assistance because I felt like I hadn't given enough of myself to warrant it. And that was a very self-sabotaging belief. It's kind of ironic because my own personal belief is that even people who have absolutely nothing are entitled to a minimum standard of living. This actually goes back to something known as the Sphere Project, and it was a major inspiration for the tiny home designs I ultimately made in college. I mean, my personal belief is that everyone should have a safe place to sleep at night, even if they don't own that place. It should be a place they can go to, like a save point in a video game. Why shouldn't that logic apply to me as well? Shouldn't I deserve a place like that for myself? Those are the kinds of things that have really mind-screwed me for a lot of this year, and those are the things I really need to work on as we go into 2024. I guess, to make a long story short, hitting rock bottom this year made me realize how little I really want out of life anymore. I'm not really a material person anymore. I don't want a nice house when the coziness of a tiny home would do me just fine. Again, the bias is there from designing one. I don't really want fancy cars because in the world of fantasy, I've already driven some of the fastest, most expensive cars in the world. I don't need the real-world versions of them, nor do I need the burdens which come with them, the maintenance, the insurance costs, the damage to the environment, you know how it is. And I don't really desire to travel for similar reasons, given the virtual world exists to take me to any country of my choosing, or even other planets. Like, tech is really my biggest non-essential expenditure right now, but I've always been good at getting good tech for low cost. So like realistically, all I would need in order to be content and comfortable in life are the basics. A place to sleep, food that won't kill me because of my medical condition, an internet connection, and the ability to stream virtual experiences. My only limits at that point would be my own imagination. And honestly, is it all that different from how humans have been for millennia? In the Middle Ages, people would surround themselves with books for much the same reason. Even if you don't live in a castle with your own horse-drawn carriages to ferry you across the land, you can open up a book and go to those places on a whim. And anything before that, would have been just blissfully ignorant of the overly complex structures that we forced upon ourselves when we built our societies. Maybe that's really it. We are so bombarded with advertising in the modern world, people telling us that we need things we really don't, so that we spend more money than we ever needed to. And thus we fall into this rut of indenturing ourselves to get that money, which again, we don't really need. Like, the entire system would just fall apart tomorrow if we as a society collectively said, you know what, I don't need whatever it is you are trying to sell me. If we just stopped paying attention to advertisements altogether, the system really would break. It wouldn't be able to print money anymore because people would stop needlessly wanting shit, and they'd stop forcing themselves into a cycle that is just unhealthy. I think, for me at least, my resolution for 2024, and beyond really, would be to live life by spending the least amount of money possible and trying to unclutter my life as much as possible, while simultaneously being as altruistic as I can be and helping others to live a similar lifestyle. And maybe that makes me insane. I don't know. Maybe I am just a freak to reject the very fabric of what makes society a miserable rat race. But I look at what other people do, and I've just never understood it. There is so much I just don't understand. And it really hit me this year most of all. I don't understand why being first in anything even matters. There are 8 billion people on this planet at this very moment. If you are number 1 in something, in anything, that makes you the top 0.0000125%. Good for you. Must be pretty lonely at the top. But even being in the top 1% of something, there are another 80 million people just like you. You're in good company then. Rather than see those people as your rivals, or people whose lives you have to make worse on your way to the top, why not celebrate the fact you all worked so hard, and you all deserve the same level of recognition? And again, I think about the fact I play games like The Crew, especially having jumped into Motorfest now. I've been gold medaling the summits in November and December, and since Motorfest is now cross-platform, that means being in the top 20,000 of nearly 200,000 players some weeks. Basically, gold is top 10% in the Crew Motorfest. And if you look at the scores for the top 20,000, everyone has around the same score, between 900,000 points and 1.3 million points any given week. It is such a narrow bracket that you can argue everyone put in the same amount of work, and deserves the same amount of recognition for the work they did, even though they weren't the best or the winner, especially since Platinum rank exists for the top 10,000. The problem is we do this a lot in real life too. We judge people based on their positions, whether it's their position on the corporate ladder or their position on the tax/income brackets. But even when you work hard, success is not a one-to-one metric. It's often the people who work the hardest that have the least to show for it. You know, in practice, a doctor and an auto mechanic essentially do the same kind of work. It's understanding how systems operate. One is a mechanical system, and the other is a biological system. I've no doubt that a skilled mechanic could perform surgery on a human being, while a skilled surgeon could totally replace the engine on a car, no problem. But one gets paid much more than the other. One has more prestige than the other, and ultimately ascends to a level of quote-unquote easiness more than the other does at late stages of the career. Again, a lot of this stuff is so freaking arbitrary. I just want no part of it sometimes. Just give me the bare minimum and allow me to give back what I can. Nothing more or less than that at this point. Well, we've certainly made it a long way, haven't we? I hope I didn't bore you with all of my insane ramblings. So now we're like 20 minutes in, we're only now hitting Texas, and that should give you a pretty clear perspective on just how massive this game truly is. This actually was a 40-minute recording initially, though I am time-lapsing it a tiny bit just to make everything fit the way I want it to, as well as to not bore you with dead air. I'll say The Crew was definitely one of my most played games in 2023, and it likely still would have been even without me making YouTube videos for it, simply because it satisfied my desire to go driving when I couldn't really do as much driving IRL. And as I mentioned earlier, if I can get the same experience from a virtual world and not have to seek out something similar IRL, then in the long run, it's all the better. But, considering how I claimed earlier in the year that I hated video games, imagine my surprise when, according to Microsoft's Xbox Year in Review, I put approximately 1,000 hours into gaming in 2023. How much is that exactly? It's about an average of 3 hours a day. And again, it really climbed because I was video prepping. Some days I did way more than 3 hours because I was trying to knock out as much as possible for past as well as future projects. And then some days I took breaks from gaming entirely for the sake of my own sanity. So as a result of all that time spent, did I achieve one of my more personal goals of 2023? That is, falling back in love with gaming after many years of, well, distancing myself from the medium. And the answer is, it's complicated. When I was able to record stuff, I felt excited and passionate about what those recordings were going to translate into. And then if I just wanted to take my mind off stuff completely, I could still drive around in The Crew or a similar game and just not click record that day. But the one drawback I feel is when I couldn't hit record until I had gone through and completed a series of arbitrary tasks to get the items or stats or what have you that I needed for the videos I wanted to make. Like, to record Need for Speed Rivals required me to spend hours grinding SP to upgrade all the vehicles for all the minute matches, so you're talking anywhere from 5 to 10 hours of grinding for literally 26 minutes of video. City Skylines was of course the worst offender in this. 3 cities videos totaling 25 minutes of finished product at the most very nearly took a combined 150 to 200 hours of prep time. And then there were a few other projects that I started and subsequently bailed on halfway through. So no videos for them, unfortunately. Now, some games I definitely played anyway, knowing they were time sinks and knowing I had no plans to make video series on them. I must have put over 100 hours into Skyrim, just building houses on different save files, and eventually I was like, well, if anything funny does happen while playing, I can at least clip a few things and make shorts out of them. Sadly, those shorts never really did well, so in the end, it really was playing for its own sake. And there's not anything wrong with that, I suppose. But you do have some games where, while I played it fully for fun the first time around, I can always go back and make a new file to record on and get through it much faster the second time around. For example, Rune Factory 4 was another game I put around 200 hours in, all for the absolutely ludicrous shipped all items achievement that nobody should ever try to get because it's dumb. But having now done everything in the game with the exception of one last achievement you couldn't pay me to do, my next playthrough, which I will record, will probably take a fraction of the time, maybe about 20 hours at the very most. I will say, doing and planning out VOD type content is very different from how I see people do streaming content. I see a lot of streamers who put anywhere from 2 to 10 hours a day on a game as part of their performance, but they're doing it all as one take. So you do see all the non-glamorous stuff, the grinding, the retries, all the stuff I ultimately have to keep out of my videos. It really does add up over time. Dead Money was like 7 hours of recording, End War was 9 hours, Savage Planet was around 8 hours with the DLC. But if you look at the 3 series I published with all of that footage, it was like a combined 6 or 7 hours at most. So literally 70% of all that footage ended up on the cutting room floor. And that's really just how it goes. I've probably said this a few times now, but going into content creation with games was far from my first choice. I really did it as a matter of circumstance, but taking that into account, it is fun. Like looking over a finished video and seeing how it turned out. That's fun. But sadly, if there isn't potential to record a game, I often can't be bothered to play it like I used to. So I have Game Pass, you know, literally 800 or more games at my fingertips. I tried Story of Seasons, Friends of Mineral Town, because it's a Harvest Moon game in the same vein as Rune Factory, but it was ultimately lacking in something and I dropped it after just a few days. And then I recently picked up Recore, and I've been enjoying it to an extent, but if it becomes too grindy, I'm liable to drop it as well at some point. And don't get me started on the Forza Horizon games, because I already did a video talking about why I'll never do Forza Horizon videos again. Go figure. Of all the hundreds of games I could literally install right now, or the literal 5,000 games currently on the active Xbox marketplace, I would say only a fraction of a percent of them excite me. And of those, the bulk are because of the potential content creation, and not because I want to slog through them of my own accord. Probably explains why I don't play many newer games, and mostly play older games or remasters of older games. Huh. Seems we've come full circle. I guess I worry just a little bit that if I do ultimately stop with the YouTube channel, my Xbox is going to start to collect dust. So I honestly don't want that to happen. I told myself I would keep at this video creation stuff at least through 2024, so we'll just have to see how things play out, I suppose. I kinda want to close this out with a glimpse into what comes next for me. This is the final video for 2023. Content will resume on January 2nd, and everything will kind of roll over into the new overlays and episode styles. Tuesdays will be me vlogging because I honestly enjoy it. Wednesdays and Thursdays, like I said, will be mainline episodes, and Saturdays and Sundays will be shorts and bonus content. You know, when I started my channel, I was putting in about 10 to 20 hours a week. Toward the end of 2023, I started putting in closer to 40 hours a week. In 2024, I want to go back down to about 20 hours a week at most, and I'm personally going to log those hours both to hold myself accountable and as a measure of, hey, you are putting in the work, you deserve to have people recognize that work and to seek their support accordingly. And yeah, making that shift will be good. I will either be finding work again, or depending on my health, taking some time to actually prioritize said health. If that means getting on disability for a bit, then I will, because I should have done so when 2023 started. Finally, I'll be trying to resurrect my other personal projects unrelated to YouTube. The tiny homes, the seaweed farming, even more wacky stuff than that. I think in closing, 2024 is going to be a very driven year, and even if I fail again and again, I still plan to exist. I am, and I exist. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully when I go to edit this, we'll be in Florida by now, and if not, please just enjoy the music for the remainder of the trip. Until next time, I'm Madeline, signing off.